What's up, Taiwan? I'm Reece with news from here in Taiwan and around the world. Talks in Geneva between the US and China on trade have ended on an optimistic note, with the US officials touting a deal, while Chinese officials say an important consensus has been reached. Details on just what has been agreed are yet to be released, but markets are already reacting positively. Joyce Tsung has the latest.
Some hope for the world economy out of Geneva as the U.S. and China end their first in-person talks since Donald Trump retook office on a positive note. The two superpowers have each imposed crippling tariffs that essentially amount to an embargo on trade that was worth $660 billion last year. The levies set off by U.S. President Trump's sweeping tariff policy, levies he says are needed to reduce the U.S.'s massive trade deficit with China. Now, some signs there is common ground.
It's important to understand how quickly we were able to come to agreement, which reflects that perhaps the differences were not so large as maybe thought.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent has promised details of what was agreed in the coming hours. Meanwhile, some clues from Chinese Vice Premier He Lifeng, who echoed that the talks achieved, quote, substantial progress.
双方一致同意建立中美经贸磋商机制，明确双方牵头人就各自关切的经贸问题开展进一步的磋商。
The chance of de-escalating tensions between the world's two largest economies brought welcome relief to markets. In Taiwan, Monday's early trading on its benchmark index went up over 200 points. Meanwhile, World Trade Organization chief Ngonzo Okonjo-Iweala has urged Washington and Beijing to keep the momentum up and to restore global economic order. She also said that progress is important not just for the two countries, but for the rest of the world. Many nations, including Taiwan, still face negotiations of their own with the U.S. over pending tariffs. Though the U.S. and China have moved on from weeks of insisting that the ball is in each other's court, China's He is clear that protecting Beijing's interests is still the top priority.
中方不愿意打贸易战。 因为贸易战没有赢家，但是如果美方执意把贸易战强加于我们，为了维护我自身利益，中方也绝不惧怕，一定会奉陪到底。
So far, there has been no mention of lowering existing tariff rates, but many are still waiting to see the fine print and find some clarity in what's been months of uncertainty. Hao Zhang and Joyce Sun for TaiwanPlus.
The annual World Health Assembly is about to meet in Geneva, but Taiwan is once again not invited. But that isn't going to stop one group advocating for Taiwan's participation from heading to Europe. Tiffany Wong reports.
Taiwan may not be invited to the World Health Assembly, but that's not stopping this group of advocates who are calling for the country's inclusion in the United Nations from heading to Geneva this week.
Taiwan can help! Taiwan can help! WHO for Taiwan!
The Taiwan United Nations Alliance is just one of several groups flying to Switzerland to advocate for Taiwan's place at the WHA, which is set to begin on May 19th. The Ministry of Health and Welfare is also sending a delegation to meet with other global health representatives on the sidelines of the official conference. Taiwan has not been invited to the WHA since 2017 due to pressure from China. The country was previously allowed to participate as an observer from 2009 to 2016 under a more China-friendly administration.
这次出访我们还有一个蛮重要的一个行程，也就是说我们会拜访在布鲁塞尔会拜访我们的欧洲议会，然后另外我们也会跟乌克兰的非政府组织合作，那也会沟通很多合作的细节，那会扩大整个在欧洲这一方面的合作。
The organization will set up an exhibition in Geneva with the themes of technology and humanitarianism, showcasing Taiwan's accomplishments in global health to promote exchange and diplomacy as the WHA is ongoing. Even without a seat at the table, civic groups like this one say they'll continue to show up and advocate for Taiwan on the international stage, even if they have to bring their own chairs. Andy She and Tiffany Wong in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Representatives from a temple in China are being investigated over suspicions they're in Taiwan to promote unification under the ruse of a religious exchange. Taiwan's Mainland Affairs Council received reports that representatives of the Fumei Temple from China's Fujian province were meeting with temples and local officials during their visit to Taiwan without prior approval. The council is investigating whether the group purposefully evaded review or entered Taiwan under false pretenses. The case comes at a time when officials say Beijing is increasingly using religious exchanges as a pretext for so-called united front work in Taiwan. The Defense Ministry says it spotted 36 Chinese military aircraft and 8 naval vessels operating around the country in the 24 hours up to Monday morning. 17 of those aircraft entered Taiwan's Air Defense Identification Zone, or ADIZ. This area is not Taiwan's airspace, but acts as a buffer zone for defensive purposes. The military also spotted 2 Chinese official ships operating near Taiwan. It comes as Taiwan's military conducts annual missile tests in the country's south. For the first time, the military plans to test fire the US-made HIMARS missile system. Voters in the Philippines are heading to the polls as midterm elections get underway. This election has pitted former allies President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. and Vice President Sara Duterte against each other as they vie for control of the legislature. Duterte's father, former President Rodrigo Duterte, is also running for a mayoral post. He is widely expected to win, despite being on trial in The Hague for alleged crimes related to his deadly war on drugs. Marcos has made China a key election issue, as officials accuse the country of trying to sway the vote. Beijing denies those allegations. For more on the Philippines midterms, Louise Watt spoke to Tony Lavinia, president of the Movement Against Disinformation in the Philippines and a political analyst.
What is at stake in these Philippines midterms?
What is at stake is, of course, democracy, whether democracy can deliver the outcomes that many people want in the Philippines. But there is also a personal thing at stake, which is the fight between Duterte, the former President Duterte, and the current administration of President Marcos. Who will prevail in the senatorial elections?
Half the 24 seats in the Senate are up for election, and the results of that could have an impact on how the Senate votes in an impeachment trial of the Vice President Sara Duterte. Is that really what this election is about?
Superficially, it is. In other words, if you break it down into personalities, that's the way to understand these elections. Usually, the administration gets a majority of the senatorial race, the winning senators. Marcos will get that. But how big is it? That is not sure. It looks like there will be at least 2, but up to 4 or even 6. That would be a clear rebuke to Marcos if 6 senatorial candidates identified with Duterte make it to the top 12.
And if we look into their policies and what they say about how they are going to make Filipinos' lives better, what differentiates the Dutertes and the Marcoses?
Well, they are differentiated in terms of what they are promising to the people. The Dutertes candidates are promising a return to President Duterte, the war against drugs. They claim that there was no crime during the time, which is of course false and not true. While the Marcoses are claiming that life is better now, which is also not true. To be honest, the people are faced with choices that are not really the best choices, because these political families have been bad for the country.
That was Tony Lavinia, a political analyst in the Philippines. A delicate peace has returned to Kashmir as a ceasefire between India and Pakistan appears to hold. But amid the relief, deep mistrust of the other side lingers, with many doubting the old Kashmir conflict will end soon. John Van Trieste reports.
A calm settles over the town of Poonch in Indian-administered Kashmir. It's just a few kilometers from here to where Indian control ends and Pakistani-administered Kashmir starts. This is one of the world's most contested frontiers, with both sides claiming rightful control of the whole region since the 1940s. After a terror attack on tourists last month that India blamed on Pakistan, a decades-old conflict over Kashmir reignited. More than 60 people were killed as the two sides traded blows, and this town bore some of the heaviest damage in the fighting. A ceasefire, brokered by the U.S. among others, looked at first ready to falter, as both sides accused the other of breaking the truce. But it now appears to be holding. Local people who'd evacuated are trickling back. Their trauma, though, is still fresh.
The time was around 5 a.m. The first shell fell, and then the second one fell in front of the house. My home was badly damaged, but at least we survived. My wife has a heart condition. When the shelling happened, she was in a bad condition. I thought, shall I save her or myself?
Many here say they're grateful for peace, but they remain on edge and deeply concerned the conflict may reignite.
Even when a bird makes a noise, we feel like Pakistan has started shelling again. I'm telling you honestly, there was some sound just now. Our ears have become sharper. I hope Allah gives Pakistan some wisdom and that they stop shelling. Even before this, there have been many ceasefire agreements, but they keep on violating them and killing us.
Across the line of control that splits Kashmir, it's clear the feeling of mistrust is mutual. This is Chakoti, almost right on top of the dividing line. Some, like local tailor Kala Khan, were able to stay put through the cross-frontier shelling, but only thanks to an emergency shelter that's still ready for use at any moment, in case peace fails.
I've built an 8 by 10 foot bunker inside my house to protect us from Indian shelling. During the recent Pakistan-India clashes, I didn't evacuate my family because of this bunker. Whenever the shelling started, I would take them into it. We've stocked it with mattresses, flour, rice, other food supplies, and our valuable household items.
People who've spent their lives here say they've seen ceasefires come and go, and they have little reason to expect this one to be different.
We can never expect India to truly honor the ceasefire. I've been living along the line of control for 50 years, and ceasefires happen, but after a few days, they violate them and start firing again. India simply cannot be trusted under any circumstances. I don't believe they will stick to the ceasefire for long.
But there is some optimism. U.S. President Donald Trump has hailed the ceasefire. And a State Department spokesperson told TaiwanPlus they're commending Indian and Pakistani prime ministers for choosing peace. And the Trump administration will continue to urge both countries to maintain a full ceasefire, helping to avert any future conflict. On the ground, though, nationalistic feelings are still high. Bilateral talks, which U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says will happen, will be the next sign of whether this truce can really hold, or whether skeptical Kashmiris on both sides will be proven right. John Su and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's former president, Tsai Ing-wen, will visit the UK later this week, marking her first trip to the country since leaving office. Tsai's office said she will visit the UK after trips to Lithuania and Denmark. While in the UK, Tsai is expected to meet with British political figures, representatives of academic institutions, and Taiwanese people living there. The visit comes after the British newspaper The Guardian reported last October that the UK Foreign Office asked Tsai to defer her earlier planned visit over concerns about angering China. Tsai, president for 2 terms, left office in May 2024. Taiwanese weightlifter Hsing-chun has won 2 bronze medals in the clean and jerk at the Asian Weightlifting Championships in China. At 31 years old, Guo was the oldest among the 8 athletes in the women's 59-kilogram category. She made her international comeback after a long break, and despite a visible injury, she completed a 125-kilogram lift. Her coach says the event will aid in her recovery and help her prepare for the upcoming World Championships this year. Thank you for watching What's Up Taiwan. I'm Reece. Take care and see you next time.